What's up, YouTube? It's Brett James back again with another video. And today, man, welcome to 5 for 5. It's going to be a brand new subject I'm going to be implementing into the channel from here on out. And I'm probably going to do it once a week along with a certain topic specific video I'm going to do at least once a week now. 5 for 5 is going to be where I'm going to talk about 5 different subjects in probably an 8 to 10 minute span as well. And I just kind of want to hit on a lot of different things across the NBA. And it gives me more time to actually hit on different topics and discuss different things. But let's stop wasting time, man. Let's hop right into this video, though. Now, the first two subjects I'm actually going to combine together. I want to talk about some of the snubs from the All-Star game and Devin Booker and Montes Sabonis. Devin Booker was easily the biggest snub out of the entire NBA All-Star selection before eventually getting replaced by Anthony Davis and then Montes Sabonis in the Eastern Conference with the Indiana Pacers, who was then replaced with Kevin Durant, who's been dealing with hamstring, COVID issues, and his other issues with the Brooklyn Nets. And he's still coming off that Achilles injury, so of course the Brooklyn Nets kind of want to preserve him for the long haul. But back to the point of Devin Booker. Easily the biggest snub from the NBA All-Star selections. And of course, there's a lot of guys like Sabonis, like DeMar DeRozan, Mike Conley, and a handful of others that you could easily replace. But I'm sorry, Devin Booker was the biggest snub. And even LeBron James, the best player in the world still, came out and said that Devin Booker is still one of the most slept on guys in the NBA and still one of the most disrespected guys in the NBA. One of the biggest, brightest young stars this game has seen since entering the league. The closest guy to drop anything to 81. Back when Kobe did it versus the Detroit Pistons, Devin Booker early in his career dropped 70 versus the Boston Celtics. That's when he really put everyone on the map and showed everybody what he is capable of. And he has been the only bright and relevant spot in Phoenix since entering the league. Phoenix has been irrelevant otherwise. And now they have one of the better young backcourts in the, well, I wouldn't say young, but one of the better backcourts in the NBA with him and Chris Paul. Devin Booker is phenomenal and one of the best players in the game right now. Props to him for finally making it, and I'm glad he was able to make the All-Star team, because if Anthony Davis wasn't injured, of course, he wouldn't have been swapped out. That would have been blasphemous if Devin Booker did not make the team. Good for him. And then I do want to discuss Montes Sabonis. Like I said, I'm going to combine those two, because Sabonis, when he was drafted by the Orlando Magic on trade night, on draft night, was traded to the OKC Thunder. He ended up playing with Westbrook and Victor Oladipo for a while before he was eventually shipped in that Paul George deal to the Indiana Pacers, and he's actually turned into a very solid player. I don't know if you want to call him a center along there with Miles Turner, but he's a good power forward, a good 5, and one of the better guys in the NBA right now. Rightfully deserved a spot in that All-Star game as well. We saw Vucevic from the Orlando Magic make it, and I think he was absolutely deserving of that spot. But Indiana is one of the better teams in the Western Conference, in the Eastern Conference, excuse me, and Montes Sabonis absolutely deserved that spot. I'm glad he was able to get swapped out. And Kevin Durant drafted him even though he was a captain. He won't be participating in the game, but good for Montes Sabonis. The next subject I'm going to get into is about these referees in the era of basketball that we're playing in. We saw the other night Donovan Mitchell get tossed out in an overtime game versus the Philadelphia 76ers, when in the fourth quarter at the end of the game, Joel Embiid was pointing at Donovan Mitchell in reference to get him ejected from the game or get teed up, either one you want to call it. And then in the overtime, Donovan Mitchell ended up getting another technical foul. He wanted a foul on Ben Simmons on a 3-point jumper, ended up getting a second tee, and he was ejected from the game. Donovan Mitchell tossed out the game. Devin Booker the other night versus the Lakers, if I'm not mistaken, tossed out the game. JJ Redick bounces the ball back to an official, tossed out the game, or gets a technical, excuse me. Montrezl Harrell yells and one on a layup, gets a technical foul. The era of basketball that we're playing in is soft as cottonelle tissue. These officials are getting too butthurt and they have too much authority and power on the dictation of how the outcomes of these games are happening. And these guys just don't have any thick skin whatsoever when it comes to these players. This is a competitive sport when guys are allowing themselves to get tossed out of games and get technical fouls for basically no reason. These referees are soft, and the NBA needs to do something about this. When you watch the Phoenix Suns, they're not a flashy team. They're in a small market. You're going to watch Devin Booker, the young ascending superstar. The Utah Jazz, same situation. Small city, small market. You're not watching the Jazz to watch Bojan Bogdanovic. You're watching the Jazz because Donovan Mitchell's an electrifying young superstar in the game. You don't toss those guys out in an overtime game, especially when it's the 1 seed in the West versus the 1 seed in the East. You do not do that when it's not deserved. Adam Silver needs to get onto these officials, and these officials need to be held accountable for their lack of accountability, honestly. And I'm sick and tired of this era, soft era that we're playing in, where you can't even look, breathe, or even smell a guy without getting a technical foul or being ejected from a game. Adam Silver needs to get on this, and the fans are sick and tired of this. Now, speaking of Donovan Mitchell, I'm going to move on to my fourth subject about LeBron and KD in their All-Star selections. Last night, we saw LeBron and KD do their All-Star selections as well. And as I said, KD was the captain, even though he won't be participating. We saw LeBron James make some controversial jokes about the Utah Jazz, and this has nothing to do with being a Utah Jazz fan. This has everything to do with respect, and I think, honestly, LeBron was trying to send a message to the rest of the NBA and to the Utah Jazz organization as well.
Nice. You know, I'm lacking a little size with my second group, so with my sixth pick, I'm going to go with Big Sabonis out of Indiana. Because there's no slander. There's no slander to the Utah Jazz, but you guys got to understand. Just like in video games growing up, we never played with Utah. Even as great as Karl Malone and John Stockton was, we would have never picked those guys in video games. Never.
We saw the last time Donovan Mitchell got criticized by a big-time athlete, Shaquille O'Neal. What did the Jazz do? They went on a 9-game win streak. They went on an 11-game win streak. They have the best record in basketball right now, sitting at 27-9. Donovan Mitchell is the face of that franchise, okay? Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert last night in that game were the last two players taken. You're telling me the best player on the best team in basketball record-wise was the second to last player taken, and him and Rudy Gobert? Now, I understand why Rudy Gobert was taken last, honestly. He's not an all-star level player when you think of the offensive flashiness that an all-star game provides, but Rudy Gobert absolutely deserves a spot in that game, and I understand why Rudy Gobert was not taken. But when LeBron James says, I need size on my team, let me take Montes Sabonis, that is clearly a shot at a guy like a Rudy Gobert. When Donovan Mitchell is taken by Kevin Durant because he had no other option outside of him and Rudy Gobert, you're telling me that these two guys were the last two? That is absolutely asinine to me, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous whatsoever. I understand that these players can do whatever they want, but I think that they're trying to send a message, and I think it's only going to fuel the fire for Utah. I understand Utah is not LA. I understand that they're not New York City or Miami. They're not some bright, fancy, flashy team that's going to get all the headlines, but Utah has deserved their respect this year so far through the All-Star break, and I think that this is only going to fuel more fire to their team, and Donovan Mitchell is going to come out hungry. I don't like LeBron's comments whatsoever. I understand the joking, but then he disrespected Karl Malone and John Stockton. I think that was pushing it a bit much, but you know what? We're just going to have to live with it. And the last subject I'm going to get into is Blake Griffin today has officially agreed to a buyout with the Detroit Pistons. Now look, Blake Griffin is not the player that he once was, the high flyer, electrifying dunker that he was in his days back in Lob City with Chris Paul in his prime, DeAndre Jordan, and the rest of the crew with Doc Rivers. But Blake Griffin is still a serviceable guy at this point in his career, at least until proven otherwise, because he's just a flashy, big-name guy who just gets paid a lot and who is overpaid, to put it plain and simple. If I'm not mistaken, Blake Griffin has not dunked in a game since 2019. That is a calendar and a half. Blake Griffin has not dunked in an NBA game. That is unheard of with a guy like Blake Griffin and his athleticism, even though he's not still the same guy. Teams have been thrown around like the Los Angeles Clippers, the Brooklyn Nets, the Lakers, the Heat, etc. Blake Griffin is going to go to a contender, and I think the best fit is the Brooklyn Nets. He can be a 4th or 5th option, and he's going to fit very well with that team. I think the story of him going back to the Clippers is a cute story. It's a nice reunion story, but that relationship between him and the owner, Steve Ballmer, needs to be patched first if he's actually going to continue to go back to the Clippers. I just don't really see him fitting on that team, even coming off the bench with other guys like Lou Will, Pat Bev, and the rest of the crew. I don't really like him going back to the Clippers, but we'll have to see where he goes. I think the Brooklyn Nets is the best fit, but let's see what happens. That's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you guys like this new subject of 5 for 5, where I will be hitting on these 5 different subjects across the NBA, and then I'll still have one dedicated video a week to a specific topic as well. This is just the most recent news, and I'll probably give an update about the All-Star game after it happens or something else. You guys let me know in the comments if you guys have any other video suggestions as well. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe down below. It only takes a moment and it helps me and the channel out tremendously, especially if you go and drop a like. I'm going to link to my socials as well on TikTok and on Instagram as well. Make sure you guys go follow me there. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much, and I'm out, boys. Peace!